It's fair to say that the bank has underachieved versus its potential. The bank's ability to recover collateral and realize the proceeds to settle their loans, that remains a big challenge. Banks have historically been a very process-centric business. What is truly exciting for me as an incoming CEO is that there is such a huge potential for improvement and growth. For the first time, we're going to do a concerted brand development work across Pakistan. Be prepared, learn about the industry, learn about the institution that you want to target. We want to emerge through a investment cycle in technology. We are not anywhere close to where we wish to be in terms of our technology capabilities. जो difference है पाकिस्तान से वो ये है कि एक बहुत smooth और efficient, quick mechanism होता है कि अगर customer default करता है तो banks can foreclose on the collateral.
Welcome to The Boss. I'm Amer Qureshi, and today our guest is Ali Gulfaraz, the CEO of Dubai Islamic Bank Pakistan. Ali, good to have you here. Thank you for being a guest on The Boss.
Assalamu alaikum, and thank you for having me here.
It's nice to be able to connect with you at this stage because I know you're just starting out in the role as the CEO of Dubai Islamic Bank in Pakistan. So, how has it been so far since you've joined, and what are your plans and aspirations in your role as the CEO?
Thank you, Amer. It's been about 5 months since I joined the bank, and I would say the first 2 or 3 months was just taking stock of where we were and trying to lay out a kind of a pathway in terms of where we want to go, assessing the capabilities of the bank and versus the competition and so on. So I think we're through that stage now, and we have some clarity about how we want to take things forward. So now it's about getting started on our strategic roadmap.
Excellent. आपका जो बैंक है, obviously it's linked to the Dubai Islamic Bank in Dubai, which is a great brand, does really well. आपकी holding company, parent company is very strong and has a wonderful brand, especially in Dubai and that region. But the bank in Pakistan has never really taken off ever since it was launched. Is it fair to say that bank has underachieved up to this point?
So I think it's fair to say that the bank has underachieved versus its potential. And I think there are various reasons for that. But if you talk about the brand, and you mentioned that we have a very strong brand, and that's true, the fact is that in Karachi, our brand is known. We are visible over there. But if you travel outside of Karachi, I think anywhere in the center and north, the visibility of the brand is very low. And in the past, we haven't actually done much work on the brand and building it awareness in Pakistan. So that is one of the gaps that we see. And I think your question implies the same, that there is a perception that our brand hasn't really developed the awareness across the country. But that is an opportunity, and that's what's exciting for me as I take on this new role.
So let's talk about जो आपका नया role है. Obviously, it's very exciting to be taking on a position such as this one. You can create a huge impact, and hopefully when you do eventually leave this position, you leave the bank in a better place. But what are your aspirations and what is the vision for the bank जो आगे चंद सालों के लिए आप देख रहे हैं अपने लिए?
If I look across the banking landscape in Pakistan, I don't see another franchise which has this much potential for improvement and strengthening as DIB. So we are sitting with a outstanding international brand name and capability, but we haven't yet fully leveraged that in Pakistan. So that's what really excites me, that the potential, if we get things right, is tremendous. So in order to realize that potential, one of the things that I have observed in my initial few months here is that we have underinvested in realizing the potential of DIB in Pakistan. And so now we are starting on a significant investment cycle. And we're looking to invest pretty much across the board. So if I talk about the 4 key pillars that we're going to invest in, firstly, the brand. The DIB brand is very powerful internationally. but the brand awareness is not so consistent and strong in Pakistan. So we need to do work on our brand. For the first time, we're going to do a concerted brand development work across Pakistan. Secondly, the network. Our network has remained relatively stable for perhaps 10 years, and we're now looking to rapidly expand the network. So our objective over the next 3 or 4 years is to more than double our branch network.
Oh, excellent.
So it is actually a pretty significant expansion cycle. Thirdly, technology. Technology is increasingly becoming a critical aspect of banking, and we want to emerge through a investment cycle in technology. We are not anywhere close to where we wish to be in terms of our technology capabilities. But when we come through the other side of our upgrade and investment cycle, we want to be one of the most innovative and agile banks in terms of technology. And lastly, people. Very importantly, in order to realize our ambition to become the best bank in Pakistan, we need to upgrade our talent base. And we're going to do that through a combination of recruiting strong talent from the industry to help us achieve this transformation and be part of this exciting journey. And also we have to develop our internal existing workforce through training and development efforts. And we're going to do that across the board with a growing emphasis on customer centricity and agility, reviewing our processes, etc. So what is truly exciting for me as an incoming CEO is that there is such a huge potential for improvement and growth. And I'm confident that through this cycle of investment and execution of our strategy, that we will emerge as a much bigger, much more profitable, and much more customer-centric bank with a very strong brand name, and also seen as one of the reference points in terms of standards of governance and ethical corporate responsibility. So it's a very exciting opportunity, and I think that the next few years are going to be a very exciting time to be at DIB.
So that makes a lot of sense, what you're saying. But I'm just puzzled because, Dubai has been there for a long time and Pakistan's been here for a long time as well. A lot of investment has been made. Billions of dollars have gone into Dubai real estate, for example, and thousands of people are working over there. So why has the bank not been able to take advantage of its unique position until now?
So I think perhaps we have not been so good in the past at recognizing and leveraging our group capabilities. And I have spent most of my career working in global banks in the UK, but with global banks, the thing that they bring to the table is basically capabilities across the world and across all kind of product segments. And cross-selling that capability wherever it resides to clients is a key reason for their success. So what we are trying to do now is to be far better coordinated and connected with our parent company in the UAE, understanding their strengths and capabilities and leveraging that to bring value to our customers over here, and as well as Pakistanis in the UAE as well as Pakistanis living over here. So I think it's more about firstly recognizing, understanding the group capabilities, and secondly being better coordinated. And we're doing that now. So I think we have been a little bit more focused on our own business over here in the past. And now we are very clear that we are part of a group, and that group has very relevant capabilities for Pakistani diaspora in the UAE as well as the Pakistani, our customers in Pakistan. And we intend to bridge that for them.
Excellent. One of the things you talked about in terms of your vision for the bank and how you think things will improve in the next few years is being more customer focused, being the best bank. Banks are very good in advertising. Almost every bank has very fancy ads, sometimes a cricketer, other sports personality. The branches look absolutely fabulous until you walk into one. And there's sometimes chaos. The staff are not interested. And that's not any particular bank. Generally, that is the standard of service that banks provide. Somehow they're not really customer focused. Why is that? Because after all, people are investing money, banks are making profits. Why do they not provide better service up till now?
So I think perhaps what it boils down to is that banks have historically been a very process-centric business. And that has also come out of necessity because it's a regulated industry, a very heavily regulated industry. And rightfully so, because banks are where people place their trust. And I think so a lot of process and SOPs have evolved over time to create that trust, to create the security of the money that people trust to the banks. But over time, I think that what has happened is that banks have been a little bit trapped by those processes, and they are process-led rather than client-centric.
True.
And where all banks were operating in a same environment, I would say that maybe people's expectations of how things are done in banks were the same, and therefore it was not really noticed as an inconvenience. But in an arena where you have digital banks and financial technology firms providing convenience and speed at a completely different level than banks, I think it's no longer possible for banks to remain tied to their old processes. We have to reinvent our processes. We have to become more customer-centric. And that is one of our key objectives at DIB, that we need to basically redefine ourselves, our interaction with customers through the customer lens, and see how we adapt, modify ourselves in order to meet their expectations and to become the best bank, as I said, which is our vision.
So how do you see the digital technology and digitization of the bank creating this customer focus and improving the sort of interaction the bank has with its customers? Because that is really where every other bank is heading in terms of becoming more digital, and maybe reducing the number of physical interactions people have with the bank. So is that going to be one of your key pillars for growth in the next few years?
So I think if we just take a look at how our customers transact with DIB today, so about 85% of all of our transactions already happen digitally.
85%?
Yes.
That's a big number.
Now, it's an interesting thing that in order to open the accounts, get the trust of the people, we need to have the bricks and mortar. So the customer origination happens primarily physically through the branches, but the customer transactions with the bank are primarily happening digitally. Now, just because that is happening does not mean that the digital experience that all the banks offer is is a superb one. So I think there is a lot of room for improvement in the digital experience as well. So one of the things that we are doing, our goal is that we should become one of the most digitally innovative bank that provides a very strong customer experience whenever people choose any of our digital channels. We're starting to invest in that, so we have some timeline to develop these capabilities, but we are clear that in the future, there is going to be a growing threat from the digital banks and the fintechs, which may not be a significant threat today. Because if you look at the profit distribution within the financial services industry, it's overwhelmingly with the bricks and mortar banks. Yes. But change is coming, and we need to prepare for that. And at DIB, I'm very keen that we are one of the banks that leads that transition and change when it happens. So we are preparing ourselves to become a very agile and innovative digital financial services provider in the future.
Excellent. So one of the other things I wanted to touch on is in terms of the future of the bank. Your bank obviously is listed in the UAE, but it is not listed in Pakistan. Is that something that is going to change? Because I believe State Bank does require banks to be listed. So is that something that you're going to be focusing on in the next few years?
So as you said, State Bank requires banks operating in Pakistan to list locally as well. So therefore, we clearly intend to do so. Our plan is to first make sure that we address some of the capability improvements that I highlighted. So we want to get the roadmap that we have today in terms of developing the bank towards our objective of becoming the best bank in Pakistan. So we are going to take a number of steps in that regard, and I would say that our objective would be to try and list in the medium term. So if I was to throw out a number, I would say perhaps about a 3-year horizon. And that gives us time to get ready. But what we are doing in the meantime is ensuring that we run our governance like a listed company would. And so when the time comes for us to list, it's really not a very big transition in terms of how we're governed.
And since you've raised the issue of governance, obviously you have a Pakistani board for the entity. With representatives from the parent company. Is that how the board is structured? And do you have some independent directors as well?
Yeah, so I think as we are a 100% owned subsidiary of Dubai Islamic Bank UAE, so the majority of the board is represented by DIB UAE officials. But we have 3 independent directors as well from Pakistan, including one woman on the board. So our governance structure basically looks very similar to other banks. The only difference being that as a 100% owned subsidiary, most of the board members come as representatives of one shareholder.
Excellent. You were talking about how you expect the digital part of the bank to become more prominent as we go forward. What are sort of products or services customers can expect from the bank in the next few years as you become more digital and start to roll out these services? What could we expect?
Basically, what I want to see from my bank is what I see in the best fintechs internationally that I've used, for instance. So banks tend to have account opening timelines sometimes in days. They have procedural requirements that to verify documents and things which can take a lot of time. But the best fintechs around the world, and I'll give Revolut, the UK-based fintech, which is the largest fintech in Europe by valuation. It's unlisted today, but I think the latest valuation was placed at $75 billion recently. I opened my account with them maybe 7-8 years ago, and in the space of 5 minutes, I opened an account and I received a virtual Visa debit card, and I was able to transact in multiple currencies and so on. So I think when I try to set out where we need to be digitally, so today I think all banks are providing digital platforms in order for customers to transact, but they are not truly at the cutting edge in terms of efficiency, speed, and innovation. And in order to do that, I think we need to study the evolving financial landscape in terms of financial technology firms, digital organizations. And it's not just banks, actually. A lot of technology firms are slowly getting more and more into traditional banking areas. So if you look globally, things like Apple Pay and, they are basically now becoming big players in the global payments business. So there is a growing threat from technology and fintech organizations, and I think we can learn from them as well, and we can adapt. Basically, in terms of convenience, so the first thing is that you should be able to do rapid, account openings, rapid transactions, and to transact across international sort of markets. So the banks should basically provide the ability to seamlessly invest, to seamlessly send and receive funds, to enable borrowing for on the retail side, for instance. People should be able to borrow from banks in an instant through their digital channels. So if the banks understand the customers, they understand their risk behaviors, and they can set up, using technology, processes that people have an ability to get instant approvals and fulfillment of what they're trying to do. So I think when it comes to things like cards, car loans, personal loans, or advance, that is the kind of thing that we should be able to automate and provide instantaneous decisions on. Some things like car loans, obviously, because you have to obtain the security or the vehicle may require some additional processes, but we should be able to process the decision relatively instantly. And where, it's just like an advance or a personal loan, we should be able to process that and fund that instantly as well.
Excellent. No, that sounds very exciting. And I think, this is what customers are expecting. And as you've pointed out, in the West and even in countries like Dubai, people have already established fintechs, as well as the banks have become very digitally advanced, like opening accounts in 5 minutes, getting credit cards approved in a matter of literally seconds from the time you upload your Emirates ID and all of that. Let's talk about some broad topics relating to the banking sector. And I'm not interested in bashing your particular bank, but just banks generally. Just want your perspective, actually, that's all. Because customers are always confused by a few things, people who deal with the banks. So on the one hand, we have deposit rates. The other hand, we have the lending rates. And Pakistan has one of the highest difference between the two. The banking spread is just too large. And it's been like that ever since I first did my first television show back in 2007. And State Bank has tried to change that, but nothing seems to change. The difference between lending rates and deposit rates still seems to be too high. Why is that?
So I think if you look at lending across different segments and different categories, I'm not sure that this is true of lending across the board. So the largest and best corporates in Pakistan borrow very close to Kybor. Sometimes there is little or no spread at all. So, but then at the other end, if you look at borrowing by SMEs, maybe the spread rises anywhere 2 to 3 or 4% over Kybor. And then credit card lending, the margins are higher. And it's always a definition of the default rates and the experience of the banks in each segment. So I think the lending margin is largely guided by the recovery rates and the experience of the banks historically. So I would say that it's not true that there is a big gap always. Some of the best corporates borrow at a zero spread or a very, very small spread over Kybor. Where I think there is room for improvement is that default rates are high in Pakistan. A lot of the lending happens in Pakistan on a secured basis, but the bank's ability to recover collateral and realize the proceeds to settle their loans, that remains a big challenge. And I think if that was addressed, then I'm sure that we would see a compression in our lending spreads as well, because ultimately it's not just the default, but the final loss that the bank books, which guides the...
Generally, एक और जो criticism banks के ऊपर किया जाता है broadly is कि SMEs और private sector की lending बहुत कम है, because banks have a very good customer in the government of Pakistan, so they don't really need to try, और इतनी कोशिश भी नहीं करते to lend to SMEs, and when they do, the margins, like we're saying, are on the high side. Similarly, a lot of lending, like you've just said, to individuals for buying a car or even buying a home, which is so common and commonplace in the West. Everyone can take a mortgage, buy a house, and move forward. So यहाँ पे क्यों नहीं होता? Why do banks not like lending money to SMEs or the private sector generally?
So I think सबसे पहले तो ये कि lending जो है वो banks का core business है, तो banks lend करना चाहते हैं. So ऐसा नहीं है कि हम करना नहीं चाहते हैं. तो अब ये है कि जब आप lend करते हैं तो बैंक्स की लेंडिंग स्प्रेड जो है वो, जैसे मैंने कहा, कि काफ़ी नैरो होती है. 0.5%, 1%, 2% اس ٹائپ کے اسپریڈس پہ, اور ایس ایم ایز میں بھی نارملی 3% یا 4% سے زیادہ اسپریڈس نہیں ہوتے. اسٹیٹ بینک کا جو ڈیٹا ہے وہ ہسٹورک ڈیٹا کہتا ہے کہ ایس ایم ای سیکٹر میں ڈیفالٹ ریٹس پاکستان میں 20% کے قریب ہیں. سو آپ اس سے خود اندازہ لگائیں کہ اگر آپ 2, 3 یا 4% کا اسپریڈ لے کے لینڈ کر رہے ہیں تو ہاؤ ڈو یو رن اے بزنس اوور ٹائم جس میں ڈیفالٹ ریٹ جو ہے وہ 20% کے قریب ہے. تو یہ ایک اسٹرکچرل چیلنج ہے. اس میں کوئی شک نہیں ہے کہ جو ایس ایم ای سیکٹر ہے وہ اکانومی کی گروتھ کے لیے کرٹیکل ہے, اور اس سیکٹر کو ایڈیکویٹ فائنینسنگ ملنا بھی ضروری ہے ہماری اکنامک گروتھ کے لیے. اس بات کے اوپر ہم سب متفق ہیں. اب یہ کہ اس کیپیسٹی کو انلاک کرنے کے لیے کیا کیا جا سکتا ہے, تو ایک چیز جس کا میں نے پہلے ہی آلریڈی ذکر کیا کہ پاکستان کے اندر لینڈنگ جو ہے وہ تقریباً اکراس دا بورڈ سیکیورڈ ہوتی ہے, لیکن سیکیورٹی کا بینکس کوئی خاص فائدہ اٹھا نہیں سکتے ہیں. تو اب میرا زیادہ تر بینکنگ کریئر جو ہے وہ یو کے میں ہوا, اور وہاں پہ زیادہ تر لینڈنگ جو ہے وہ انسیکیورڈ ہوتی ہے ایکسیپٹ فار اسمال انٹرپرائز, مے بی مڈل انٹرپرائز اینڈ جو انڈیویجولس کی ہوتی ہے بورنگس. تو وہاں پہ جو ڈفرینس ہے پاکستان سے وہ یہ ہے کہ ایک بہت اسموتھ اور ایفیشینٹ کوئک میکینزم ہوتا ہے کہ اگر کسٹمر ڈیفالٹ کرتا ہے تو بینکس کین فور کلوز آن دا کولیٹرل, اور اس کو وہ لیکویڈیٹ کر سکتے ہیں اور اپنے لاسز ریکور کر سکتے ہیں. اس سے بیسکلی بینکس کو کانفیڈنس آتا ہے کہ اگر ڈیفالٹ ہو بھی جائے, جو سیکیورٹی کولیٹرل آپ کے پاس موجود ہے اس سے آپ کا الٹیمیٹ جو ہے ریکوری ہو جائے گی. اس کانفیڈنس سے پھر بینکس جو ہیں وہ لینڈ کرتے ہیں. تو پاکستان کے اندر باوجود اس کے کہ ہمارے پاس اکثر جو ہے اپنے لون ایکسپوجر سے ڈبل یا ٹرپل کولیٹرل ہوتا ہے, لیکن اس کولیٹرل کو ریئلائز کرنا جو ہے بعض دفعہ بہت وقت لے لیتا ہے, اور بعض دفعہ 10 سال گزر جاتے ہیں اور وہ ریکوری نہیں ہو پاتی. تو میں سمجھتا ہوں کہ بینکس کو یہ کرٹیسزم ہے کہ ہم پرائیویٹ سیکٹر میں شاید اتنا ایکسپوجر نہیں لیتے, یہ اس بات میں کوئی شک نہیں ہے کہ گورنمنٹ جو ہے وہ لارجسٹ بورور ہے, بٹ ایک تو یہ کہ گورنمنٹ کی بھی ریکوائرمنٹ ہے, تو اس ریکوائرمنٹ کو بھی کہیں نہ کہیں سے تو میٹ ہونا ہے. دوسری بات یہ کہ بینکس جو ہیں گورنمنٹ کو جب لینڈ کرتے ہیں تو ہماری جو پروفٹ اسپریڈز ہوتے ہیں وہ گورنمنٹ لینڈنگ میں ریلیٹیولی کم ہوتے ہیں پرائیویٹ سیکٹر لینڈنگ سے. اگر ہماری پرائیویٹ سیکٹر لینڈنگ جو ہے وہ اس سے ریکوری بہتر ہو جائے تو آپ کو کہوں گا کہ بینکس جو ہیں ایز اے میٹر آف چوائس پرائیویٹ سیکٹر کو لینڈ کریں گے, اور گورنمنٹ کے لیے مشکل ہو جائے گی بینک سے بورو کرنا. تو پرائمریلی واٹ وی نیڈ ٹو چینج از ٹو میک دی ایبلٹی ٹو ریئلائز دی کولیٹرل اینڈ لیکویڈیٹ اٹ ٹو ریکور دا لونس. وہ اگر ہو جائے تو آپ دیکھیں گے کہ ایک فنڈامنٹل شفٹ آ سکتی ہے پاکستان میں. اب فار انسٹنس مورگیج لینڈنگ جو ہوتی ہے وہ دنیا بھر میں جو ایڈوانس اکانومیز ہیں وہاں پہ آپ سمجھیں کہ کلوز ٹو 100% آف ہاؤس پرچیزز جو ہیں وہ مورگیج فائنینسنگ کے تھرو ہوتی ہیں. پاکستان میں شاید 1% بھی نہیں ہوتی ہیں. اس کی پرائمری وجہ جو ہے وہ بھی یہی ہے کہ بینکس کے لیے اٹ از ناٹ ایز سیف ٹو لینڈ آن فار مورگیجز. لیکن دنیا بھر میں جنرلی اسپیکنگ مورگیج لینڈنگ جو ہے اٹ از ون آف دا سیفسٹ ایسٹ کلاسز فار بینکس, اور اس کے اوپر مارجن جو ہیں بہت لو ہوتی ہیں. تو اگر یہ چینج یہاں پہ بھی آ جائے اس کا ایک بہت بڑا فائدہ یہ ہوگا کہ مورگیج فائنینسنگ, اینڈ میں اس کا بہت بڑا پروپوننٹ ہوں کہ مورگیج فائنینسنگ جو ہے اس کو زیادہ مارکیٹ میں ہمیں وہ ایکسپینڈ کرنا ہے, کیونکہ پاکستان میں جو آپ دیکھتے ہیں وہ ایسا ہوتا ہے کہ اکثر لوگ اپنی ساری پروفیشنل لائف جب گزار کے ریٹائر ہوتے ہیں تو اپنے ریٹائرمنٹ بینیفٹس انکیش کرتے ہیں اور تب جا کے زمین خریدتے ہیں اور گھر بناتے ہیں. اگر وہ 25 سال پہلے اپنے کریئر کے شروع کے سالوں میں وہ گھر خرید پاتے تو وہ گھر شاید اس سے مے بی 1/4 دی پرائس ہوتا ہے اس وقت. اور جب وہ ریٹائرمنٹ اسٹیج پہ پہنچتے تو ناٹ اونلی ان کی مارگیج جو ہے وہ ری پیڈ ہوتی اس وقت, بلکہ ان کے پاس ساری جو ریٹائرمنٹ سیونگس اور ہیں دیٹ وڈ ہیو بین اے نیسٹ ایگ جس سے وہ آئندہ اپنی زندگی کمفرٹیبلی گزار سکتے ہیں. تو ایکچولی ویلتھ کریشن اور اسٹینڈرڈ آف لیونگس کو امپروو کرنے کے لیے ایٹ اے ریٹیل لیول مارگیج فائنینسنگ کو عام بنانا جو ہے یہ ایک بہت بڑا ویریبل ہے, اور میں سمجھتا ہوں کہ اس میں کلیکٹیو اسٹیک ہے ساروں کا کہ خوشحالی اگر پاکستان میں لانی ہے تو مارگیج فائنینسنگ کو عام کرنا ہے اور آسان کرنا ہے. اس کو ان لاک کرنے کے لیے ہمیں یہ فورکلوجر سسٹم کو بہت ایفیشینٹ بنانا ہے. اگر یہ ہو جاتا ہے تو جیسے میں آپ کو کہہ رہا ہوں کہ بینکس ایز اے میٹر آف چوائس جو ہے ان کو پھر نہ کسی گورنمنٹ کی طرف سے نہ اسٹیٹ بینک کی طرف سے ٹارگیٹنگ کی ضرورت ہے. ہمیں بیسکلی بینکس آر ان دا بزنس آف لینڈنگ اینڈ وی ول لینڈ ویئر ایور we can build a successful business.
So ایک بہت اچھی opportunity ہے نا for us as a country if we can fix these couple of things, because younger generation جو ہے as you correctly pointed out ان کے لیے گھر خریدنا is like an impossible dream. باہر کے ملکوں میں مشکل ہوتا جا رہا ہے but that's for different reasons, but یہاں پہ تو affordability جو ہے it's impossible, yet they still have to find enough money to pay rent. تو جو وہ rent دیتے ہیں that money could have been going into their own mortgage, and by the time they're 30-40 years old maybe they'll own a home which will have substantial value. جس طرح سے آپ کہہ رہے ہیں asset base بڑھ جاتا ہے. So this is something that needs to be fixed, and it's not just the banks. So ہم banks کو maybe تھوڑا سا unfairly criticize کرتے ہیں, but the government needs to step in and hopefully make it easier for you to enforce your rights. اچھا, ایک اور چیز جو میں آپ سے پوچھنا چاہتا ہوں, and it's been something I love to talk about because it frustrates me, کہ credit cards banks جو ہیں, I know آپ کا بینک نہیں دیتا credit cards, so we're still on debit cards, but just generally industry میں یہ ہے کہ credit cards تو دے دیتے ہیں ہر ایک کو, anyone who wants one can get a credit card. But جو interest rates ہیں, should we not be able to make your monthly payment, اتنے زیادہ ہیں, and they're excess of 40% in some cases. What's the reason behind that, and how do the banks justify it? Because اگر صرف ایک bad debts کا issue ہے کہ they can't, too many people are defaulting and not paying their credit card, تو پھر ہم سارے کو دے کیوں دیتے ہیں? Why can't the banks, and I know you're all experienced bankers, why can't they just manage this one little thing so the charges are a bit more reasonable?
As you rightfully pointed out, DIB Pakistan doesn't have a credit card today. So it's difficult for me to comment on the rates charged by other banks. لیکن فنڈامنٹلی جو ہے وہ پوائنٹ یہی ہے کہ یہ انسیکیورڈ لینڈنگ ہے. اس لینڈنگ میں بینکس کے ایکسپیرئنس میں ڈیفالٹ ریٹس زیادہ ہیں. میں سمجھتا ہوں کہ اگر بینکس جو ہیں وہ سلیکٹیو ہوں زیادہ کہ کارڈ جس کو دینا ہے وہ ان کی لیے لمٹ بھی سوٹیبل ہو اور ان کی ہسٹورک بیہیویئر کے بیسس پہ وہ دے آر اے گڈ رسک, تو اگر آپ بہتر کلائنٹ سلیکشن کریں کارڈز کو دینے کے لیے تو اٹ از پاسبل ٹو ریڈیوس ریٹس. اب ریٹس جو لوگوں نے رکھے ہیں مارکیٹ میں وہ اپنے ڈیفالٹ ایکسپیرئنس کے بیسس پہ رکھے ہیں. اینڈ جیسے آپ نے کہا کہ ایک وہ ٹینشن ہے کہ آپ نے زیادہ لوگوں کو دینا ہے, اگر زیادہ لوگ ڈیمانڈ کر رہے ہیں تو اس کی ریکوائرمنٹ میٹ کرنے کے لیے بھی بینکس جو ہیں شاید تھوڑا سا وائڈر ایشوئنس کر دیتے ہیں. لیکن ایک اور چیز ہے اس میں, وہ بڑی انٹرسٹنگ اور یونیک چیز ہے پاکستان کے لیے, وہ یہ ہے کہ پاکستان میں ایک ماڈل بن گیا ہے کہ کریڈٹ کارڈز کے اوپر لوگ ڈسکاؤنٹس ایکسپیکٹ کرتے ہیں, اور ڈسکاؤنٹس بھی سبسٹینشیل قسم کے. یہ دنیا میں کہیں اور نہیں ہوتا. ایکچولی سارے بینکس جو ہیں وہ اس مارکیٹ میں اب ڈسکاؤنٹس کے اوپر کمپیٹ کرتے ہیں اپنے کارڈ پورٹ فولیو کو گرو کرنے کے لیے. تو آپ یہ بھی کہہ سکتے ہیں کہ ایک طرح سے وہ ڈسکاؤنٹ بھی پرائسنگ کے اندر ایمبیڈ شاید کیا جا رہا ہے. ہمارے پاس تو کریڈٹ کارڈ اس وقت نہیں ہے تو میں اس کے اوپر کامنٹ نہیں کر سکتا ہوں, لیکن اگر آپ ریسٹورینٹس میں 40 یا 50% کے ڈسکاؤنٹس ایکسپیکٹ کر رہے ہیں تو لانگ ٹرم بیسس کے اوپر تو وہ سسٹینیبل نہیں ہے. پھر 40-50% از higher than the charges that they are taking. تو اس کی بھی شاید ریکوری کی اس بلڈ ان کیا جا رہا ہو اس کے اندر. بٹ fundamentally I believe that if you are more selective, choose the right clients and set the limits appropriately, then it is possible to offer a lower priced card, and that can be, I think, a competitive advantage for a bank that tries to do that.
Yes, I think that's very true. But you're quite right about the discounts. They're quite fascinating actually, and one almost is tempted to keep increasing the number of credit cards just to be able to, choose which restaurant you go to and get 30-40% discount. Johor. Let's talk about something a little bit different now. Let's go back to your bank as an organization, etc. तो हमने गवर्नेंस पे तो बात कर लिया. Let's talk a little bit about people and culture. You're quite new in the role, as you said, 5 महीने हो गए हैं. How would you describe the current culture of your bank that you've inherited, and where would you like to take it or transform it to?
So I think I will perhaps talk about where I would like the culture of the bank to be. And it needs to be consistent with our vision of becoming the most progressive Islamic financial institution, and also our objective of becoming the best bank in Pakistan. So I would like DIB to be a place where our employees feel safe, they feel valued, they feel fairly treated, and they want to be there. And a place which makes a pull on the industry that, outsiders are looking for opportunities to be a part of this organization. So I would say it's primarily to make this a highly desirable place to work, not just in terms of compensation, but in terms of the overall environment and well-being of our staff.
Excellent. And how do you propose to sort of balance the gender diversity or diversity as a whole within the bank? And what would you say is your current ratio of, let's say, female versus male employees, and where do you see it going in the next few years?
So in terms of the female staff ratio, I think we are already in a relatively good place. Our current female staff ratio is 22%, which I believe is a few percentage points above the industry. It's not at the upper end, and certainly we would like to be towards the upper end in the industry in this space. Where I felt that there was a gap that needed to be addressed when I joined was that whereas the ratio was, as I said, reasonable to begin with on an overall bank basis, but in senior roles we had a significant gap. And so that's something that we are looking at addressing, while we are not trying to exclusively fill roles with women, but we are being more proactive in trying to seek out female candidates and ensure a better balance. Coincidentally, we have gone, I think, in terms of senior roles, we have made a significant improvement just in the last 3 months with a few senior hires. So I feel that we're making good progress there, and we have a few further ones in the pipeline. So we should become a place which ultimately reflects the best diversity standards in the industry. Beyond having women in the workforce, we also have an active policy to be a welcoming environment for persons with disabilities. We have a 2% ratio in our workforce of people with disabilities, and we try to make this is a good work environment for them as well. So I think diversity, we take it beyond just the gender aspect of it, and we are, as an organization, very open to people of all faiths, of all ethnicities. And as I said already, looking to have a better gender balance, and very open to people with disabilities as well. So I think diversity is definitely something which we see a differentiator for us, and we want to continue to be one of the leaders in this.
In order to sort of achieve some of your objectives, especially in relation to making the bank more customer focused and making it the best bank in Pakistan, What are you planning to do in terms of training and development of your staff? Is this a high priority in the coming years?
So, in order for us to meet our objectives, clearly there is a gap today, and that needs to be addressed both through recruiting high caliber staff, but also developing the existing staff continuously. So, training is clearly an important tool that we use to do that. We've had a number of training programs, leadership development programs for people in the middle management ranks. We have specific training programs looking at customer service standards. We have programs that are addressing some professional skills like risk analysis and so on. So yes, we have a range of training programs, and increasingly we need to focus on customer experience. So we are actually in a investment phase right now, and we're looking to invest pretty much across the board. So in people, in technology, in network, in infrastructure. And so we are looking to more than double our branch network over the coming years. So it's a very significant expansion in our network. From a technology standpoint, we want to become a leading innovator and trendsetter when it comes to digital financial services. We are not there yet. We have a lot of work to do to become consistent with that objective, but we are starting the investment today, and we intend to get there. And in terms of people, so in order to meet this significant expansion, we are going to have to induct a lot of people anyway. But it's also about ensuring that we have the right team to not only realize the transformation, but also to be one of the most agile, customer-centric banks in Pakistan. So in order to do that, there is a investment going on in team building, both through external recruitment, but also training and development to ensure that we have the best workplace in order to realize our ambitions. And in terms of infrastructure, the bank is aiming to secure a modern head office tower in Pakistan to clearly state its ambition and its intent to be a significant investor and player in the country. So basically, the investment is going on across all these fronts, and we are looking at our processes, how we can change them to become more customer-centric. We're looking at our competitive gaps versus the industry and how do we address them. So there is a concerted effort going on right now to have the right people armed with the right technology. The processes are adapted to become more customer-centric, and we empower and motivate them to go out and deliver. So over the next 2 to 3 years, we expect to see a significant difference in our market share, in our brand recognition. Brand is another area that we need to do significant amount of work on. And we want to make sure that the brand excites in people the idea of an agile, customer-centric, modern financial institution, and also their financial gateway to the UAE and beyond.
Okay, excellent. We'll talk a little bit about how young people can perhaps be part of this journey as you take this bank forward. I think we'll close with those couple of questions I have relating to how people can, perhaps get an opportunity to work for your bank. But let's talk finally about the sector as at the moment. How you see the banking sector progressing. In the last 6 months or so, banks have actually been doing very well. In fact, even before that, they've been doing well. The asset base is growing. It's grown by about 11% till the end of June 2025. Deposits are growing and 17.5% growth or 17.7% to be precise, over the 6-month period. So what are your expectations from the sector? How do you see it going? Because overall, when you look at Pakistan and the macro factors, we're still struggling with inflation. There is still instability with the foreign exchange. situation. The external account pressures are still there. So you've got all these macroeconomic pressures, but the sector still seems to be quite resilient. What are your expectations? And aage kya hoga?
I think, firstly, banks have had a good 1 or 2 years because there is a significant correlation between the policy rate and bank profitability. And we've seen, very high policy rates in recent years. So banks are coming off of that. But now with more than halving of the policy rate, there is greater pressure on bank margins going forward. But what happens when rates are very high is that default rates also increase. So I think what we will see now is perhaps greater interest in borrowing by the private sector, smaller companies, and at the retail level by consumers as well. So in an ideal scenario, the bank profitability should cope reasonably well through the cycles. But where you have very dramatic movement in the policy rate, it does have a bearing on bank performance ultimately. Where I would say going forward, and looking beyond the short term, I feel that we need to start today, and you mentioned young people, so we should start building our future customer base today. So I'll give you a couple of examples. Back in my university years, between graduate school and my master's degree, I took a year and I went to work at Apple Computer at their global headquarters in California. It was an amazing experience.
I'm sure.
And what I saw at that time was that Apple was basically a tiny new entrant in the computing world with a dominating giant called IBM. And businesses almost exclusively were buying their hardware. And Apple did something very smart. They could not compete today or at that time with IBM. So what they did is they invested in the future. They started giving computers away for free to schools. They started giving computers at heavy discounts to students and professors and teachers. And they created a generation that graduated from university having been completely focused on the Apple computer. And when they started jobs and they had the money to buy their own computer, they bought Apple computers. When they became managers in the workplace and could influence purchasing decisions, they were buying Apple computers in the workplace. And over a 10 to 15 year cycle, that investment paid off, and you got to a place where Apple was the giant and IBM was the tiny competitor in its place, and essentially changed its business completely to a new business in order to compete and survive. So that is, to me, a very important lesson. Bank profitability generally derives from people of professional ages or older. But the large number of customers of banks, they are younger people, and we need to cultivate that young customer base today. We need to basically make them our customers today because they will be the key drivers of our profitability in the future. And that's where digital innovation, which we talked about earlier, is key. So we need to excite them about our brand today. And I think, generally speaking, when you look at young people today, they are not looking at the commercial banks. They are looking at fintechs as a more accessible, more convenient, and better service for them. So we need to basically create space in their minds for our brand today, so that when they become, more affluent, they are contributing to our profitability.
So you're creating customers for life almost if you start young. I remember when one of my sons was going to school, maybe in primary school, one of the big banks in Australia would visit the primary school, speak to the kids about what a bank is and what they could do, and actually open an account for them, a special kind of account they had. And now my son is well into his 30s, and I think he still has a relationship with that bank, because that was his first ever bank account he had, and he's just got that affinity with the bank. Whether the bank is good or bad doesn't really matter. He's continued that relationship. So started very young, at the age of 5 or 6. Let's just wrap up our conversation, which has been absolutely fantastic. And you've shared some great insights about the bank and its future and the direction that you want to take. And you've also been very kind to give your perspective on things which don't necessarily affect your bank, but the sector in general. But one of the things I like to do before we finish is talk about the young people in Pakistan. Pakistan ki population, as we all know, is full of young people, and that is the future of the country. So you've made this bank sound very attractive place to work. If I was younger, maybe I would also be applying for a job. But how do these young people get an opportunity to work for your bank?
So, firstly, I just wanted to say that as a bank, we are expanding and we are investing and expanding quite rapidly. We are in an expansion phase today, so we need more people. Secondly, what I would say to young people is that it appears always that there is a shortage of good roles. But from an employer's perspective, it has been my experience throughout that it is difficult to find good people. And so this challenge is something that we continuously face. And so what young people can do is find a way to stand out. We get sometimes hundreds of applications for a certain role.
Yes.
It's difficult to differentiate between the people over there. So be prepared, learn about the industry, learn about the institution that you want to target. Go in prepared with knowledge about the institution, what's happening in the sector, the dynamics, the performance trends, and so on. The better prepared you are, the more you stand out from the crowd. And how you can reach us. We are like all of our competitors. We are available on social media. So LinkedIn is usually the best place to see the vacancies that we are advertising, and you can apply from there. But fundamentally, I would say that we are always finding it difficult to find good people. And given the significant expansion that we are undertaking now, there are roles for grabs. And I hope that your listeners are going to get in touch with us and become part of our transformation as we go forward.
That's wonderful. Thank you very much for sharing that. So if you're a young person or not so young and you're looking for an exciting place to work, which is growing, which has great ambitions for the future, then perhaps DIB is an organization you should check out. Ali, thank you very much for being on The Boss. It's been a pleasure to have you and for being so generous with your time, and I really enjoyed the conversation.
Thank you very much. Pleasure to be here, and I also really enjoyed the conversation. Thank you.
Best of luck in your new role. We'll check in with you again maybe after about 12 months to see how you're doing.
Thank you.
Thank you very much for joining us on The Boss. I hope you enjoyed the conversation with Ali Gulfaraz, the CEO of Dubai Islamic Bank in Pakistan. We will see you next time.